Hello and welcome to the third High Performance Imports video. This first part is the 2002 Tokyo Auto Salon. I imagine most people know about the Auto Salon, but it was the biggest uh, performance car show in Japan at the time and still is. Although over time it became a bit less about performance and a bit more about dress-up cars, if you like. But in 2002, this was kind of the peak, in my opinion. Anyway, this is also the first video where we started using Ben Wong as the narrator. At the time, some people thought I was giving myself a pseudonym, but no, Ben Wong is a whole other guy. And he did all of the videos up until number 9. When I arrived at the show, I had to go and sign in as a journalist. Luckily, by then, my Japanese was good enough to do that. And I had a copy of High Performance Imports magazine with me, so I could show them what I did. Anyhow, on with the show.
Welcome to the third edition of the High Performance Imports video series. This time we're going to show you Japan's biggest aftermarket car show, the Tokyo Auto Salon. This is just one of 3 massive halls at the show, all filled with extreme modified cars. This year is the 20th anniversary of the show, so to celebrate, a 4th hall was used to display the most significant custom-built cars of the last 20 years. Some of the choices were a bit of a surprise. Anyone who bought the PlayStation game Gran Turismo 2 should recognise this car. The Tomica DR30 Skyline was one of the most successful GT cars of the early 80s. The 2-litre engine makes 570 horsepower with plenty of good old-fashioned turbo lag. The 240ZG has classic deep dish Watanabe magnesium alloys with a stroked triple Weber fed L-series engine. This later model carries the extremely rare LY crossflow engine, which was developed strictly for racing and makes 300 horsepower naturally aspirated.
That was a really interesting motor at the time. As you can see, it's a crossflow. Although it's only single overhead cam, 2-valve per cylinder, it had much better flow, obviously, than the standard L-series head. If you had one of these heads today, you could pretty much name your price for the thing.
Rarer still is this OS Geekin engine using their own 24-valve twin-cam head on a 3-litre L-series bottom end. Any Z owner's wet dream.
I think that is actually one of the original TC24 heads, which were one of the first things that Okazaki-san from OS Geekin designed. A couple of years after this show, they actually re-released that head in an updated design, and they offered them as a complete motor with a billet full count balanced crank and the potential to rev up to about, I think it was 10,000 RPM and produce up to 400 horsepower naturally aspirated. I don't know how many actually got built in the end, but there were quite a few orders.
In the main hall, Nissan's own stand had the nostalgia flowing, with the original 1970 KPGC-10 Skyline GTR parked alongside the latest R34 Type M. In its day, this GTR was a technological marvel, using a twin-cam 2-litre straight 6. It stopped the domination of Porsche in Japanese GT racing, so it remains a hero car to this day. It's not too hard to spot styling cues that have carried through the generations, like the...
You might be wondering about the wheels. It doesn't seem like they belong on the car. That's actually what they came with if you bought one from a dealer, but obviously they ran a lot bigger rear wheels, especially in the race cars.
Flared rear guards, quad headlights and the general proportions of the coupe shape, not to mention the twin-cam straight 6 engine. Top Secret always have been a big stand with wild project cars and very nice campaign girls. This Supra showcases a number of new trends, like coil-over shocks with height adjustment at the top of the shock.
This is not something that ever caught on for road cars, but in a race car it is handy to be able to adjust the height of the car from the top.
The GTR engine conversion is a top secret trademark, as is the titanium intercooler plumbing.
Yeah, it'd be fair to ask, why would you take out a 2J and put it in an RB26? But Smokey from Top Secret was just crazy about RB26s. He put them in all sorts of things.
The carbon Kevlar underspoiler at the rear is a new top secret product, while the new wheels are the latest release from Ray's Engineering. The big carbon rear wing is also a top secret specialty, along with these neat race style mirrors. The top secret R34 was a major draw on this stand, but you can see this car in our first video. In another part of the...
Actually, you can't. You'd have to look in Hard-Tuned Imports 2, I think. That was where I covered that car. I'll be covering the Hard-Tuned Imports series after I finish doing all these high-performance ones. Hard-Tuned Imports 2, I actually released just before High Performance Imports V1.
Top Secret has two Hondas on display, both built for one-make racing. The S2000 is a stunner, with the Top Secret gold paint and new front spoiler. It also has the Top Secret wing and underspoiler. Inside it has race seats, harnesses and a detachable wheel, but it still can be driven on the street so long as you enjoy a lot of attention. The new Integra Type R also has its own race series. Engine tuning is limited, but Top Secret have fitted a titanium air feed and another one of those carbon fibre rear wings. Like the S2000, it has a relatively comfortable interior and Ray's Engineering forged wheels. The Signal R34 has one very proud new feature. It has run an 8-second pass on street tyres.
Yep, they finally got there. I actually did an interview with the owner of Signal, but it was so noisy at the show that you could barely hear the audio, so I ended up not using it.
Despite a year of racing, the paint is still immaculate. But now that the time has been achieved, the car will not be used for drag racing anymore. Judging by the new wheel and tyre package, circuit racing is next on the agenda. The HKS 3240 twin turbos have also been swapped for a big single turbo, namely the Truss T88 34D. Signal's wide-body S15 has also been given a new look, with vibrant orange paint and chrome graphics. This car has been built strictly for circuit racing, so this might not be the last time it needs a paint job. The SR20 engine uses a Truss T78 turbo and makes 670 horsepower. This is really pushing the limits in a rear-wheel drive car. A Truss GTR intercooler is also fitted, with a Truss Type R blow-off valve and large volume plenum. The strut brace is titanium, just to save another kilo or so. The oil cooler is neatly mounted on one side of the bar with a shroud to control airflow. The brakes are straight off an R34 GTR with dual fuel pumps and a surge tank in the boot. It also uses the popular quick release steering wheel hub. The Signal Integra was much like the Top Secret car, but with Signal's own special body parts and signature graphics.
As you can see, a lot of the cars at this show are either actual race cars or built to look like race cars, which is something that has gone away recently.
The Jun Akira Supra was one of the most popular exhibits. Built solely for top speed, it uses a specially designed nose cone with a 1200 horsepower engine using all Jun engine components. The 3.2 litre 2JZ has not one but two Trust T78 turbos. Just one of these is good for 700 horsepower. The inlet is custom made with an 85mm throttle. A complex header tank system is also used to control coolant flow at high RPM.
As Ben mentioned, this car was built for top speed. At the time, Option Magazine were organising a lot of top speed challenges, and Daijiro-san from Option was usually the one who drove the Jun cars. If you've seen any of the videos from back in the day, he quite often stuff up and run the car in the wrong gear once he ran it straight off the road. So it's surprising how long Jun stuck with it. Apparently they took this car to the Bonneville Salt Flats in late 2001, and their top speed was 401.2 kilometers per hour. After that, I don't think they developed it any further and actually wound up selling it. But it had been an ongoing project for about 4 years before that.
The car was actually displayed on a brake pad stand, which makes sense if you think about it. In a car that does over 400 kilometers per hour, stopping is a major concern.
There you go.
The feature car for Rapex was no surprise. Their twin-turbo Integra drag car is one of the fastest front-wheel drives in the world, now running in the mid-8s. It would take hours to explain all the technical features of the car, as everything is custom-made. The engine is angled forward to keep the weight balanced to the front. Each turbo runs off 2 cylinders with a shared wastegate system. The air intake is just in front of the windscreen, while the titanium exhaust dump just behind the huge Goodyear slicks. The radiator is laid flat under the water-to-air intercooler. The chassis is entirely custom built, so it's really not an Integra, it just looks like one. The driver sits closer to the centre of the car, which is a handy safety feature as the car hit the wall during early testing. HKS chose to display a pair of Evo 7 Lancers this year instead of their Supra and Skyline drag cars. This white car was the weapon of the pair, using a GT 3240 turbo and an unusual intercooler setup. It is one of very few cars to lap the Tsukuba circuit in under 57 seconds on street legal tyres.
Yeah, Tsukuba circuit was and still is a real benchmark in Japan. That's where time attack racing really got started in Japan. And the time that you could run with street legal tyres is pretty much what defined a tuning workshop back then.
The black car was a little less extreme, using mainly bolt-on parts from the HKS catalogue. It also showed off the HKS Earth-Wire system, which is said to help ignition system power.
Yeah, that was a kind of a fad, really. I think the fact that it was really easy to manufacture and it was a really visual thing to put in your engine bay made it really popular at the time. The idea was that by directly grounding important components, you'd get better performance than relying on grounding it through the chassis. Whether or not it makes any difference would be pretty hard to measure, I think. A couple of years later, you stop seeing them.
新たなる挑戦、ドライビングパフォーマンス。その答えがここにあります。
Blitz made the unusual choice of an R34 Skyline sedan as their main demo car. Equipped with a K5 660R turbo, the RB25 DET Neo engine now produces 470 horsepower. Putting all of that through the rear wheels makes it an interesting driving experience. The new Sora convertible, called a Lexus SC430 in foreign markets, has already come in for some serious engine work. Not one, but two Blitz superchargers with a neat carbon fibre shroud to really impress your golf buddies.
I've actually driven one of these and it is not at all impressive. The superchargers are actually very small. It only gained about 100 horsepower, maybe a bit more. So in a heavy car like the SC430, it still wasn't very impressive.
As for Valeside, well, who else would you expect to put a body kit on a Ferrari?
That's a coincidence. I've got a piece of that Ferrari just there. 348.
Their Evo 6 Lancer still looks good, and they've gone to work on the new Integra too. Trust had an army of 12 demo cars outside their stand, some built by outside workshops. This glitter paint R33 GTR has been around for a while, but it has recently been updated with a new high flow version of the T88 34D Turbo. Another glitter job was applied to this JZX100 Chaser. Essentially a street car, it showcases the Trust T67 Turbo, among other Trust components. The massive T88H34D is still the centrepiece of the towering Trust turbo range. Changing the front end of a car is very popular in Japan. Here, an R34 GTR style nose has been adapted to a Nissan Stagea wagon, which is...
Yeah, this is something that confused a lot of people over the years. People thought, oh wow, that's a wagon version of a GTR. But yeah, from the A-pillars back, it's just a Nissan Stagea.
Already available with GTR running gear. How about a Ferrari 360 nose for your S15 Silvia? Or a Porsche nose for your RX-7? There are also taillights to make any model look like a Lexus IS200.
Yeah, unfortunately, that style of taillight with all the chrome on the inside was really, really popular, and I think it went on a few too many cars.
Duluck cut up a perfectly good S13 Silvia to show off their new power assist bar, which is not a roll cage, but simply an elaborate chassis bracing system. The Miracle crossbar for the RX-7 also takes chassis bracing to new extremes.
It wouldn't be unreasonable to ask, why don't you just get a roll cage? But I think the important thing there is it's all bolt-in and removable stuff. So if you want to sell the car later, you can take it out and sell it. And also, you can take it out to get it through registration.
Of course, for sheer cool factor, you can't go past a titanium strut brace, or a titanium exhaust system for that matter. These usually weigh a quarter of the standard system's weight.
Yeah, titanium exhausts were very popular at the time. And yeah, they were extremely light. Unfortunately, they had a tendency to crack. Really, the way that they made them light is by having extremely thin walls, which you could get away with in titanium, but they didn't last forever.
Lightweight is also the focus for the latest forged rims, like these P1 wheels from Ray's Engineering, or these T6 wheels from AVS, a branch of Yokohama. Kreutzer is another brand from Yokohama, using an unusual polished intersection. In-car DVD systems are already popular in Japan, with screens of various sizes. It may take a little longer before everyone has a slot machine in their car. Splitfire used this neat Z car to showcase their #1 product, which is another Earthwise system like the HKS example. These are really popular now in Japan, partly because they're so easy to fit. In case the real cars are too far out of reach, Tommy had the world's smallest remote control car on sale. Naturally, we bought the Skyline version.
As you might guess, that's my office back at Express Publications, where I spent quite a lot of time trying to drive this thing.
On a slick surface, you can even do some micro drift, but drifting is always a risky sport. In some countries, vans or wagons are seen as practical, family-oriented vehicles, but not in Japan. Just look at this Honda Odyssey. They see a bigger car as a bigger opportunity to add spoilers and skirts that defy any kind of logic.
It's also when the weird craze of having an incredible amount of camber on a car got started, as you can see on the back of that Odyssey. I know that online this is now the subject of a lot of memes as being the most stupid way you can modify your car, but it certainly did gain attention, even if it meant that you had to drive around really, really slowly.
Most vans are not fast, but this turbocharged beast is a notable exception. With about the widest flares we've ever seen on a road car. Imagine shopping in this thing. VIP is another category of modified cars that's unique to Japan. Basically, you take an expensive luxury car, drop it to the ground and fit the biggest rims possible. The new Sora was an instant hit with the VIP boys, so all of the VIP wheel manufacturers had one to show off their 20-inch rims. On a Sora, they seem like exactly the right size.
In a way, I wish they'd stopped going any bigger than that, because the 23s and 24s people run now are so heavy, and they're the opposite of a performance modification, really.
So what do VIP owners look like? Well, they all want to look like this guy, who was even more popular than the campaign girls. "23-inch rims and tyres are now readily available in Japan, and companies like AME have plenty to choose from. VIP cars are supposed to exude class, so naturally the campaign girls need to be dressed to match. No complaints here. Perhaps the ultimate in VIP style is this stretched Nissan President.
Car you don't hear about much anymore. There's a lot of attention now on the V12 Century, but at the same time that Toyota was selling that, Nissan's #1 car was the President. Just had the same 4.5 litre V8 that you would find in an Infiniti Q45.
If you saw our last two videos, you'll be familiar with the concept of drifting. Drift cars have their own unique style too, though this particular Silvia, built by option, is really on the fringe. The CA18 engine is supercharged, with a NOS bottle in the back, crazy sprint car seats, and Motec engine management. The leopard paint is certainly distinctive. The ultimate in drift style is this 180SX. The SR20 has a Blitz K5 660R turbo, with the intercooler mounted in the engine bay to save it from drift damage.
Saving it from damage is one of the reasons they did that. This is what they call V-mount, and air coming through the bumper gets forced up through the intercooler and down through the radiator. The real performance advantage of it was that the air going through the radiator hadn't already gone through the intercooler. Obviously, controlling the engine temperature is a difficult thing in a drift car, so this became a pretty popular modification.
The 18 by 10 inch rims need custom flared guards, especially with such low suspension. The sequential shift adapter is another popular drift product.
Yeah, the shift adapters were only popular for a short time, because while they did give you a sequential action, they didn't make the gear changes any faster.
The wide guards on this S13 Silvia make room for incredible deep dish wheels. They're probably 12 inches wide, but the tyres are meant for much smaller rims, so the sidewalls are really stretched out. This helps sharpen the response of the tyres and lets the rim sit outside the guard lip. Note the shock absorber between the engine and the suspension tower. Of course, there's more to the Auto Salon than just cars.
They were a bit of a trick, those engine dampers. They weren't really a shock absorber, even though they looked like one. On the inside, they just had rubber on either side of the, piston, you could call it. But they did work as far as controlling the movement of the engine a bit.
To keep the spectators amused, there were professional para groups performing throughout the show. There was a bikini contest too, put on by the option crew. Sure enough, things got out of hand when Nomikin from Urus turned up. To compete with this, some exhibitors had their own shows going in the main halls.
That girl on the right-hand side actually came out to Australia the following year, and she appeared in a photo shoot for Hot Fours magazine and on a video that we did for Hot Fours as well. Just a little tidbit of information for you.
The halls are impressive, but you haven't seen the Auto Salon properly until you check out the car park. Here you see the cars that the real fanatics drive. What drives people to turn Toyota Hiaces into Batmobiles is beyond us. Judging by the long wings and bumpers, we think they might be compensating for something. The less extreme versions actually look quite cool, but how can you drive a car this low? As if to answer our question, they all drove out together.
And just like that, that's the end of the Auto Salon coverage. I'll be coming back with part 2 of High Performance Imports V3 shortly. Cheers.